original.
Hello and welcome to Webcrawlers, the podcast where we do a deep dive into some of our favorite mysteries. Each week we will introduce our topic, lay out our research and findings, reveal some conspiracy theories, and conclude with our own hypothesis. I'm Allie Siegel.
I'm Melissa Stettin.
And scene.
That's all.
And scene.
Goodbye.
Melissa, who are our patrons for today?
We have M. Anderson.
Oh, from The Matrix?
Mr. Anderson.
Hello, Mr. Anderson.
Johanna and Kara.
Guys, welcome to the team. We are so excited to have you. And a potential Patreon perk we're thinking of, we haven't decided yet, but I'm pretty sure is when...
the coins.
Well, no, even more exciting, is when Melissa is on maternity leave. For guest hosts, we're thinking we might choose patrons.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah. Either they can hop in as guest hosts on my episode, or they can write their own episode and host, and I'll be their guest hosts. So
that's a fantastic idea.
Yeah, so we'll announce it for sure this week on our mailbag episode. But if you become a patron, I'm pretty sure you might be able to be one of our guest hosts.
If you have like an idea that we haven't done yet that you want to talk about or something. It doesn't have to be like a full episode, even if it's just like,
like mini episode or something.
Mini episode or something.
Yeah, we can even compile a bunch of them for a main episode.
That's a great idea.
Yeah, so we will officially announce that this week. I'm so excited. I've never heard of what this is. I don't want to spoil alert it. Melissa, what's our episode about today?
Well, this is when we first started the podcast, this was on the list of stories and I'm like, oh, this would be cool. And then I just forgot about it. And then my sister texted me. She's like, you guys should do this on the podcast. And I was like, oh my God, this is a crazy story. I forgot all about this.
Yeah.
And here it is.
And so here it is.
So in February 1978, well before we were born, 5 men headed from their home in Yuba County, California, which is, I believe, a couple hours north of Sacramento.
Yeah.
So it's Northern California, to watch a college basketball game. They left after it finished, and then they somehow drove up a mountain into the wilderness, and they were never seen alive again.
Oh, God.
Also, this is sometimes referred to as the American Dyatlov Pass.
Which I love.
Has a lot of similarities to it.
Uh-oh.
And it happened right in our own backyard.
But we were not alive yet, so we did not do it. We have an alibi.
No. It wasn't us. So what happened to these 5 men?
Let's get into it.
Okay, so around 10 p.m.
I think we get winded talking.
24th.
Okay.
Strap in. Yeah. So a basketball game ended at the California State University at Chico. 5 young men who attended the game climbed into a turquoise and white 1969 Mercury Montego.
Nice.
One of those giant long cars. And they drove out of the parking lot. They were fans of the visiting team, which had won.
Nice.
And they stopped 3 blocks away at Bears Market. They bought 1 Hostess cherry pie.
Oh.
1 Langendorf lemon pie.
Ooh.
1 Snickers bar, classic. 1 Marathon bar, which I believe is now discontinued.
Oh.
And then 2 Pepsis. And a quart and a half of milk.
You had me until the milk.
Remember when people just buy milk and drink it out of the quart?
Insane.
Psycho.
Yeah, sociopathic.
The men all lived at home. They were aged 24 to 32. You had Ted Weir, Jack Madruga, Bill Sterling, Gary Mathias, and Jackie Hewitt. They were all intellectually challenged, and they were all enrolled in a day program for, I believe the correct term is cognitively challenged adults.
Okay.
But that didn't mean that they were totally unable to function in society. It was quite the opposite. So of the group, Gary Matthias.
I think it might be Matthias.
I don't know. I initially thought it was Matthias. Then I watched a video.
Oh, really?
Matthias.
Okay, never mind.
Someone else said Matthias.
Oh, interesting. Okay, who knows?
My instinct was Matthias, so I'm going to go with Matthias.
Yeah. Or go with whatever you think. Go with what your heart says.
Gary Matz.
Yeah.
He did not have an intellectual disability. However, he did have the most severe mental health issues. He was suffering from schizophrenia and was on medication to control symptoms.
Good.
He had served in the U.S. Army, and he had a driver's license. But he was discharged from the Army because of schizophrenia.
Oh, no.
And he was on Stelazine and Cogentin, which are both used for schizophrenia. And then police records show that he had become violent on occasion. He was charged with assault twice. And after his return from Army service in Germany, he would fail to take his drugs occasionally. And he would like lapse into this like psychosis. They usually landed him like in a hospital.
Yeah.
His stepfather, Bob, described it as he went haywire.
Yeah, that's what happens is, you're feeling good and then you stop taking your meds.
We've all been there.
Yeah.
I don't need this medication anymore.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
oh,
I
God.
want to die.
Yeah.
I want to die. So there's Ted Weir. He was the oldest of the group. He was said to, quote unquote, lack common sense. He was employed for a while as a janitor and a snack bar clerk, but quit at the urging of his family, who thought his slowness was causing problems.
Interesting.
And then there's Jackie Hewitt. He had a slight droop to the head, was sometimes slow to respond. He was BFFs with Ted, who Ted looked at after him as like in a protective sort of way. Like when Jackie had to make a phone call, like Ted would dial the number for him.
Oh, that's nice. That's sweet.
They were like pals.
Yeah.
Then there's Jack Madruga. He graduated from high school. He had a very low IQ. His family said he was, quote, slow in thought, and he had difficulty maintaining a job. He was laid off in November 1977 from his job as a busboy for Sunsweet Growers. So, like, they held jobs.
Yeah.
And then there's Bill Sterling. He was Jack Madruga's best friend. He was very religious. He would spend hours at the library reading literature to help bring Jesus to patients in mental hospitals.
Interesting. Okay.
Love the Jesus.
Yeah.
Okay, so after the game, they picked up their snacks, but they never returned home.
God.
They just disappeared.
Oh, Jesus.
But what's weird is that they were supposed to play a basketball game of their own the next day on February 25th, like part of this tournament, and they would win a free week in Los Angeles if they won.
Oh.
So they were all like very excited for this basketball game. So it would be unusual for them to just
not
be like,
come.
Yeah, we're not going to come home.
Right.
Like their clothes had been laid out the night before. They each had a beige T-shirt with the words Gateway Gators across
that's a good
the
team.
chest. The Gateway Gators from the Yuba City Vocational Rehabilitation Center for the Handicapped, where they all played basketball.
That's nice.
That's fun. It's like the Pistol Shrimps.
Yeah.
Their families reported them missing that night, and the police began to immediately search for them. And then on Tuesday, February 28th, which is 4 days after the disappearance, they found Jack Madruga's Mercury.
Oh, they found the car.
And then from that day on, nothing they found, nothing anybody told them seemed to make any sense at all.
Oh, God.
So the car was abandoned on an unpaved road near Oroville and the Rogers Cow Camp area up in the mountains at like 4,500 feet. And it was located around 70 miles from Chico. Which was like a 2.5 hour drive from Chico in the opposite direction from the route that they would have been expected to drive home.
How weird.
So I believe it was south of where they were going, just a complete opposite direction. And it was up in the mountains in the Plumas National Forest. So that was already odd. Like they weren't even driving home. They just kind of went in the opposite direction.
Could they have wanted, is the Plumas National Forest particularly beautiful? Like, could they have wanted to visit it or?
It was snowing. It was winter
Oh,
time.
okay. Yeah. So that doesn't make much sense.
Yeah, so it didn't really make sense.
Yeah.
So the car had stopped at the snow line. They found the car and like the tires like kind of spun a little and like maybe got stuck a little. But they said the car wasn't really stuck at all. Like they said 5 people could easily have pushed it free. Like it wasn't like stuck in the snow. It was like, oh, you could have just shoveled snow.
It, yeah.
The gas tank was a quarter full, so they didn't run out of gas.
Yeah.
One of the windows was rolled down, and then 4 maps were found in the glove compartment.
So they weren't lost or anything. Yeah.
The keys were gone, but the police hotwired the car engine and it started immediately. So there wasn't any engine trouble.
Problem, yeah.
The car was fine. Both seats had the wrappers of the food that they bought at Bear's. Everything had been eaten except the marathon bar, which was half gone.
Someone was like, not for me.
That's why it got discontinued. Because
yeah, not for me.
I think it was like caramel covered something.
I didn't even know it was discontinued.
I feel like it was discontinued like in the 80s. There was no damage to the car, no signs of foul play. It was as if they just kind of like stopped the car and got out. Jack Madruga's family said he disliked camping and he hated the cold. And he didn't know that road or area at all.
So they definitely didn't do it for purpose or fun, yeah.
They said none of the boys knew the road, as far as anybody could tell. They said like 8 years prior, Bill Sterling had gone fishing with his father at a cabin that was kind of in that area, but he did not have fun. He ended up staying home the few times that the family went back. He was like, I fucking hate fishing. I don't ever want to go back.
Yeah, I don't ever want to go again.
3 years ago, Ted had hunted deer with friends in the Feather River County, kind of nearby, but it was like pretty far west of where the car was found. And his family said that he wasn't really into the forest either. Like no one was into camping. It's not a thing that they like to do. And then with the exception of Gary, who occasionally stayed out all night with friends, each of the men had mostly stay-at-home lives. Like they didn't go out. They didn't stay out late. No one could figure out what or who might have taken them up that road in the mountains. It was just such a mystery. And then the search team found nothing after they found this car. For 4 months, there was no news. They were searching. They were looking everywhere. They found nothing. And then the snow started to melt.
Oh, God.
So on June 4th, a small group of motorcyclists spotted a deserted Forest Service trailer at the end of the road. Like, I'm assuming it's one of those, like, permanent trailers.
Yeah.
That's, like, in the woods. They noticed a broken window. And as they got closer, it smelled very bad.
Oh, no. Oh, God.
It was about 19 miles from where the car was found. Inside the trailer was the body of Ted Weir.
No.
So search and rescue teams then began combing the area around the trailer. And they found Ted. He was laying on a bed inside the main 60-foot trailer, frozen to death. He had 8 sheets had been pulled over his body and like tucked around his head, which they think means that someone else had been with him in the trailer because he couldn't have tucked himself in that way.
That way, yeah.
His leather shoes were off and missing, and there was a table by the bed with his ring that said Ted engraved on it, his gold necklace, his wallet that had cash inside, and a gold Waltham watch with its crystal missing, which the family said had not belonged to any of the 5 men. So it was like kind of like a mystery watch.
Oh, that's weird.
On this table, they're like, that's not Ted's. We don't know whose watch that is. So that was a little odd. And before Ted went missing, he was 5'11", 200 pounds. But by the time his body was found, he had lost like from 80 to 100 pounds.
Oh, God.
And his feet were badly frostbitten. And his beard had grown. So that showed that like he lived apparently for, they predict anywhere from like 8 to 13 weeks.
Oh,
so
Jesus.
He was alive for like, 2 to 4 months. They think he was
But the
alive.
car worked. That's so weird.
Yeah. And yeah, he was 19 miles from the car. He was wearing just a striped velour shirt and lightweight green pants, like very light clothes for the winter. But yeah, his beard had grown. So they were like, he's been alive for a few months. They don't know how long, but he was alive.
Jesus.
So the trailer had been broken into through a window. And what's weird is that no fire had been built. Although there were matches in the trailer. There were like paperback books, wood furniture, the stuff that would have burned easily. They could have easily made a fire.
Well, if they had cognitive impairment, maybe they just couldn't.
That's the thing.
Put it together. Yeah.
And then a storage shed right outside the trailer, there was a year's supply of sea rations.
Oh,
which
no.
are like
yeah.
individual pre-cooked prepared meals for the military. And they saw that they had eaten 36 of the meals. So someone was eating the food, but they left the majority of them untouched.
What?
And there was also a huge supply of freeze-dried meals. And one of the cans had been opened with an Army P-38 can opener, which only Jack and Gary, who had served in the Army, probably knew how to use. Like, it was a special kind of can opener that, like, you would only know how to use if you were in the Army.
That's so weird.
So that makes them think that, like, either Jack or Gary was in the trailer with them, like, opening these cans. Very strange. And no one had touched the propane tank in another shed outside either. All they had to do was turn the gas on. And they would have been heated. They would have had food.
What is going on?
Yeah, I mean, it does kind of make sense that they were, like, impaired. So maybe they didn't. But, like, they weren't that impaired. Like, they functioned in society, I guess. I mean, I can understand if you don't know how to turn on propane. Like, I don't think I would know.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be like, let's look for the propane tank. I'd be like, I don't know. What do we do?
Right. But that's confusing that, you know, if they starved to death and there were still meals there and they had started eating them.
Left.
Yeah, that's confusing. Now let's take a quick break for announcements. Webcrawlers has a Patreon to get access to video episodes, the potential to guest host, shout outs, merch discounts. Please go to patreon.com/webcrawlers. You can donate as little as $2 a month to become one of our bimbo patrons. Also, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts. If you give us a 5-star review, we will shout you out. Sometimes we also read the 1-star reviews, but please don't do that.
Don't do it.
Yeah, don't do that. Also, Erios has a hotline. Insert jingle here.
626-604-6262.
It has been popping off. Please continue to call us, then join the Discord and join the family. We will play them on our mailbag. Now, back to our program.
Okay, so then there's a guy named Joseph Shones. So this guy, Joseph, he contacted the police after he heard about the disappearance to say that he had seen the men between 11 p.m. and midnight on the Friday night that they disappeared. He said that earlier that day, around 5:30, he was driving up the same gravel road to his cabin. And he was trying to see if the drive was clear enough to take his family up there for the weekend because it had snowed. So he was going to drive up there to make sure it was safe to take his family.
Yeah.
But his car got stuck in the snow, unfortunately.
Oh, God.
So apparently it wasn't safe.
Yeah.
He was trying to push his Volkswagen Beetle out of the snow. He had a heart attack.
Oh, no.
And the doctors later confirmed to investigators that he indeed suffered like a very mild heart attack. So it didn't kill him.
Yeah.
And there's a couple different versions of what happened next. So in one version, this guy Joseph was just laying in his car for a few hours trying to recover from this heart attack, trying to figure out what to do because he was 8 miles from the nearest store. And at 11:30 p.m., which I guess would be an hour after the basketball game, he saw 2 sets of headlights coming up behind him. One was a car, the other was a pickup truck. He got out of his car to flag them down. And the 2 cars stopped about 20 feet from him. And then the passengers then left together in one car. Like they got out of one, they got another car. And they just ignored him. And then Joseph spent the rest of the night in his car before walking back down the mountain in the morning.
That's
weird.
That's
one version. There's another version that's more mysterious. Is that while Joseph was in the car just kind of laying there, he heard whistling noises, and he saw what he thought was a group of men and women with a baby walking in the light of another vehicle's headlights. And then he called for help. The lights turned off and the whistling stopped, like they were scared of him or something.
What?
And then a few hours later, he saw flashlight beams outside his car, and he called for help again, but immediately the lights went out. So he's saying he was like laying in his car, like yelling, like help, and like walking by with flashlights, and they just like turned off the flashlights because they didn't want to be seen or something.
Right.
So he stayed in his car until it ran out of gas. He just had the heat on.
Yeah.
And the next morning, he walked 8 miles down to get help. He passed by Jack's Mercury on the way. He said it was empty, and he said he didn't see anyone in it. He said there's like a window rolled down. So he for sure saw the car. He's like, yeah, it was a turquoise and white Mercury.
What the hell?
And then he didn't think much about what he'd seen until he heard about the disappearances. So he called the police, and he was like, holy shit, I saw that car and some people.
Yeah.
So he's probably the last person to see them alive. So that's very strange.
That makes no sense.
Makes no sense. So then the day after Ted's body was discovered in the trailer, the searchers found the remains of Jack Madruga and Bill Sterling.
Oh, God.
They were on opposite sides of the road that headed to the trailer. They were about 11 miles from the car. So they were like halfway between the car and the trailer.
Huh.
So like, did they even make it to the trailer with Ted? Were they leaving the trailer to look for help? They don't really know. They had been partially eaten by animals. They were dragged 10 feet to a stream. Jack was laying face up. His right hand was curled around his watch.
What?
Bill was in a wooded area, and like his bones were scattered about like 50 feet. So like animals had kind of probably
this is
ate them after they died. So they don't know if they made it to the trailer and then they left to walk back to the car and then died. It's very strange. And then 2 days after that, just off the same road, but much closer to the trailer, Jackie Hewitt's father found his son's backbone.
Oh, God.
The detectives had tried to talk him out of joining the search.
Yeah.
Because they were like, they didn't want him to find his son.
Yeah.
But that's exactly what happened. He's like, I'm going to find it. And he's the one who found like his bones.
Oh, gosh.
So there were like a few other bones around, and his son's Levi's and his shoes.
Oh, no.
So it was for sure him. And then an assistant sheriff found a skull the next day.
Oh, God.
And the family dentist identified the teeth as those of Jackie Hewitt.
Oh, no.
So 4 men were found. His remains were a little north of the trailer, kind of like Bill's and Jack's. And the other northwest of the trailer, about a quarter mile away, they found 3 wool Forest Service blankets and 2 flashlights lying by the side of the road. And the flashlight was slightly rusted and had been turned off. And it was like impossible to tell how long it had been there. So it was just like Ted in the trailer, 3 men kind of around the trailer.
Yeah.
But Gary was still missing.
And Gary is the one with schizophrenia?
Yes.
Interesting. Okay.
But Gary's tennis shoes were found inside of the Forest Service trailer.
Oh.
So, which the investigators think that he might have taken them off and he put on Ted's leather shoes.
Yeah, because Ted had no shoes.
Yeah, because Ted had bigger feet, and Gary's feet might have swollen with frostbite, and his shoes were probably warmer. But like they had no idea. That's kind of just what they assumed. So Gary had been working in his stepfather's business, and he was taking his medication, and a local doctor who knows him called him one of our sterling success cases. So he was doing very well on his medication. He collected Army psychiatric disability pay. He was very attached to his family. He loved basketball games. He listened to the Rolling Stones, and he loved Olivia Newton-John.
Oh, R.I.P.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
He had a bunch of records. So the issue with Gary being on medication is that he didn't take the medication with him.
Oh, shit.
So after they got lost in the woods or whatever, like, just went a long period of time just cold turkey off his medication.
Fuck. Yeah, that's,
So you can probably assume he may have had another episode, schizophrenia. He probably wasn't doing that well.
Yeah, fuck.
John Thompson, who's the special agent from the California Department of Justice, who had joined the investigation, he said it was very bizarre. There's no explanations. They had 1,000 leads every day. They had more and more leads, but they just had no idea what happened. Jack Madruga's mother, Mabel, says there was some force that made them go up there.
Yeah.
They wouldn't have fled off in the woods like a bunch of quail. They're not going up there like a bunch of quail. But we know good and well that somebody made them do it.
Yeah.
Like, we can't visualize someone getting the upper hand on those 5 men, but we know it must have been. So Jack's mother is convinced that someone forced them to go up there. Ted Weir's sister-in-law said they seen something at that game at that parking lot. They might have seen it and didn't even realize they seen it.
What does that mean?
So she thinks that they witnessed something that they shouldn't have seen.
Oh.
And they were like, that's what the sister-in-law thinks, which could make sense.
Well,
And they
who
were like,
was in that pickup truck? Like, what was that pickup truck?
They don't know. So that's why the 2 sets of headlights could have been the Mercury and then a pickup truck. And like I said, he saw people get into one car.
Yeah, I mean, the
So
pickup
maybe
truck could have
that-
been someone being like,
Yeah.
but that was like maybe they were robbed or something, but the cash was still there. So that's what was weird. And all their watches and rings and things. So, God, that's confusing.
Doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
So the police did learn that a snowmobile, had been up there the day before they disappeared and had plowed a road leading up to that Forest Service trailer. So there was a path from where their car was, that road, going to the trailer in the snow. So maybe that was like they found that path. Maybe they got lost up there. Someone forced them to drive up there and they saw a path. They're like, well, let's get out and take this path. But also that doesn't make sense because they had gas in their car. So
Yeah.
So the watch they found didn't belong to any of the boys, that like weird watch. They still don't know who it belonged to. It could have been a forest ranger's watch that was left up there.
Yeah, maybe it was just left up there.
So they don't really know. Gary apparently knew some people in the Forbestown area, which was between Chico and Yuba City. So maybe people are like, oh, maybe he was taking his friends to meet up with these other friends.
Yeah.
Like the turn was apparently easy to miss, so they could have made a wrong turn. But then they found out that those friends hadn't seen Gary in a long time, and it would be very strange of him to show up randomly at like midnight. And they had that basketball game the next morning that they were all excited about.
Yeah.
So it would make no sense for them to go up there. So why did they get lost that night and end up on the mountain? So Chico to Yuba City is straight down Highway 70 with like no snow at the time. It's a 46-mile drive, so it's like around 1 hour from them to leave the basketball game to get home. But the car was found several thousand feet up in an area above the snow line in a completely different direction. Like, why would they go in the complete opposite direction? That's like the first mystery. Like, were they forced to go up there? Did they get lost?
I wonder if they were teased and like some mean jock was like, there's a party up in the mountains, like go there, like we'll meet you there. And then they waited and like kept waiting for people to show up.
They got lost, maybe.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, it's a possibility. Who knows?
Yeah.
So what happened around this car? So the car was left unlocked. The window was down. Gas in the tank. Did they somehow leave the car and lose the keys? Because the keys weren't there.
Oh, that's definitely possible.
So this could explain the strange story by Joseph Shones where he said he saw flashlights around a car.
Yeah.
So maybe they
yeah.
were searching for the keys.
Yes.
They were searching in the snow and then they had been freaked out by his calls for help in the area. Like they just heard some random person yelling, help, help. And they just kind of got scared.
Yeah.
I mean, that would kind of scare me, I guess, if I was like in the woods. And
Yeah,
someone
I
yelling
think so
help,
for
I'd be
sure.
like,
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
Serial killer.
It would scare me. Yeah.
But how did they end up getting to this trailer that's about 19 miles from the car? Because Ted was found in the trailer 19 miles from the car. Jack, Bill Sterling, Jackie Hewitt were found in the area but like several miles away. So like how did they walk in normal shoes without outdoor clothing.
Yeah.
So far in snow. Like, were the group together and then they decided to separate after Ted's death to try to find help? Like, were they all in this trailer for like a couple months eating this food and then they're like, we got to get help because we're going to die out here?
Yeah.
And maybe Ted died first and they were like, oh, fuck, we need to get help.
Need to figure this out. Yeah.
Maybe. And why did Ted starve to death?
Yeah, that doesn't make sense.
Still there? Like, he apparently had a slow and agonizing death from starvation because he lost over half his body weight.
Jesus Christ.
So he was alive. But why wasn't he eating the food?
Oh, God.
Like, had the group been abducted and the perpetrator was, like, preventing access to food or something?
Yeah.
Was Ted suffering from gangrene caused by frostbite, maybe? He had, like, an infection?
Maybe.
And then why would you abandon a car to go out into the forest at midnight? Like, why would you be like, oh, let's leave this car that still has gas, that's still working. Let's go walk off into the snow.
Yeah, that makes no sense.
And like, why drive all the way up there in the first place? Did someone chase them?
Yeah, it does not add up.
And then what were the whistling noises and the voices that guy Joseph Shones heard? Even like a fire, like they didn't even build a fire. Were they afraid of something? Someone coming to find them? And the investigators can't prove there was foul play, and they can't explain if there wasn't. So they don't even know if Gary has died.
That's what's so crazy.
They think he did. Because it's been like, what, 40 years, and he was like in his 20s. He could still be alive.
Yeah, he could still be alive.
Still be alive out there, and they'll probably never find him. So there's a theory that perhaps after they got lost, the first 2 men died of exposure while the other 3 made it to the trailer / cabin. They hang out a while. They're doing all right. But at some point, Gary's schizophrenia medication wears off and he has like a mental break and he runs off into the woods. And then Jack tries to find him and he gets lost in the snow and neither men make it back to the cabin.
Oh, God.
Ted, who's alone now and intellectually challenged, doesn't know what to do or how to save himself, so he just kind of waits in the bed and like wraps himself up in blankets and eats some of the canned food and waits for people to find him, and then eventually just dies from starvation.
I mean, and I think at some point when you're alone, you might just lose your will to live.
Yeah. Or did all the men make it to the cabin? They eventually set off to find help and then died? And did Gary stay behind to help Ted, who had gangrene and frostbite on his feet? That kind of makes the most sense to me.
Yeah.
That all 5 of them would make it to the cabin. And then they just kind of hung out there and ate food. And then 3 guys went off to find help. Their bones were found. And they just
that does make sense.
Froze to death or... Because they weren't wearing warm clothes.
But what were they doing in the first place? Unless they want to
in the first place.
Unless they want to like go on a night adventure or something. But if they all hated
basketball game the next day.
Yeah, and it seems like they all hated camping in the snow and things like that. So it just doesn't make sense.
I think someone told them to go up there or chased them up there.
Oh gosh. This is horrible.
I don't know. It's a mystery.
It is a mystery.
A big mystery.
If you are from this area, have any ideas, have heard of this case before, or have your own theories, Melissa, where can people reach us?
You can email us at webcrawlerspod@gmail.com.
Well, guys, another great episode in the books, and look forward to our mailbag episode this week with our special Patreon announcements about Melissa's maternity leave.
Maternity leave 2022.
Maternity leave 2022. And the potential opportunities on what Melissa's pregnancy might mean for you. Anyways, I am Allie Siegel.
I am Melissa Stettin.
And we are the Web Crawlers. Bye.
Bye.
Studios original.
Powered by Acast.